Today's a great story. Although he would eventually become one of the biggest selling artists of his time, he failed for years. He missed the charts time and again. But this rookie rocker was brash and unrelenting. He even had enough swagger to convince one of the greatest frontmen of all time to sing backup on his album, one of his first albums, for free, no less. And that may have made all the difference to start out, because that record propelled him to superstar status. Plus, you're going to hear the unexpected story of how he mumbled his way to this huge hit, today's featured track, and give you the lowdown on the secret to his songwriting success. It's all coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember the McDLT back in the day, you're going to enjoy this channel of deep musical nostalgia, really nostalgia overall. Subscribe below, hit the red button. I know that you're going to love this channel. Well, at least love something on here. We always take the time machine back to the good old days, the great music. And also check us out on Patreon. We have more content there that helps us keep it a daily channel, and our merch below. So I'm excited to return to another one of my favorite shows that we do on this channel. We haven't done this for a little bit. It's called Breakthrough. In this show, we break down songs, albums, or events that kicked open the door to an artist or band's career and, gave them the momentum to rocket to long-term success. Today, we're going to dive deep into a classic track by one of Canada's finest. Talking about Bryan Adams and his classic, Cuts Like a Knife, from his 1983 studio album of the same name.
Now it cuts like a knife.
So technically, Cuts Like a Knife wasn't Bryan Adams' first hit single. It was actually his second. That honor of the first that goes to Straight from the Heart, which peaked at number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 on May 28, 1983. It's actually 2 months before Cuts Like a Knife topped out at number 15 later that summer.
Straight from the heart.
I'm going to break the rules a little bit. I'm talking really about the record Cuts Like a Knife. For today's program, I'm going to champion Cuts Like a Knife as the breakthrough track due to one important distinction for his career. When you're talking about Bryan Adams in the 80s, the man is inseparable from his songwriting partner, the indisputably talented Jim Vallance. The two wrote together from the start, from the time that Bryan Adams was a teenager, in fact. And you know what? Straight from the Heart is Bryan's only 80s hit that doesn't have Valance's name attached to it. It's pretty interesting. So this time, run to you, Somebody, Heaven, Summer of '69, One Night Love Affair, It's Only Love, Heat of the Night. All of these hits read Jim Vallance on the name tag. Together, this duo co-wrote 13 top 40 singles on the Hot 100 from the 80s. On into the early 90s. Racked up 4 platinum plus albums and sold over 26 million units globally. It was a beast of a run. And nothing against Straight from the Heart, but Cuts Like a Knife was the song that really kicked off the Adams-Valance hit parade to the world as one of those great rock tracks.
But it feels so right.
So Adams was just 18 when he met session musician Jim Vallance in Vancouver, BC. Jim remembers well the day he met Bryan. It was January 9, 1978. The two actually ran into each other at a Vancouver musical instrument store. Jim was there with a friend, actually piano player Allie Monroe. Allie already knew Bryan Adams, and she introduced him. Bryan and Jim, they actually exchanged numbers right there, and they got together just a few days later. It was a fast fit for sure. Over the next 11 years, they would write dozens of songs together that would rule radio. But the early years of the partnership got off to a slow start, at least commercially. Going back to February 12, 1980, when Bryan Adams released his self-titled debut, no one outside of Canada paid much attention to it at all. The record failed to break into the Billboard 200 at all. And north of the border, it actually stalled at number 69. 2 Adams-Valance compositions were released as singles from that record, Hiding from Love and Gimme Your Love. Neither of them fared very well, though. They both missed the U.S. Hot 100, and they actually topped out at number 64 and number 91 in Canada. But the album did open some doors in the Canadian music industry. But that was really the only silver lining at that point. Said Jim Vallance about it, "Personally, I think I should be shot for producing Bryan's first album. And actually, Bryan is credited as co-producer, but really, I'm the guilty party. In 1980, I didn't have the skill, the knowledge, or the experience to build a world-class album from the ground up. And as a result, Bryan's debut album is a dog's breakfast of musical styles and influences." End of quote. Pretty harsh there. A year and a half later, in July 1981, Adams released his sophomore LP. And since his debut had flopped, he called it Bryan Adams Hasn't Heard of You Either. That was a no-go for the label, though. So he changed the name to You Want It, You Got It. This record was a slight improvement over the first. It reached number 50 on the Canadian charts and went to number 118 in the U.S. The single Lonely Nights was the pair's first to break into the Billboard Hot 100, but it topped out at number 84. Fits You Good went to number 30 on the Canadian charts, but it was MIA back in the United States. So it was pretty rough again. I mean, at this point, Bryan Adams was anything but a household name. 2 albums, 2 strikes, 2 failed attempts. However, third time was the charm. Cuts Like a Knife. That would be a different story. Cuts Like a Knife was recorded and mixed at a trio of studios between August 13th and October 20th of 1982. It started at Little Mountain in Vancouver, and then it moved to Le Studio in Morin Heights, Quebec. And finally, the Power Station in New York with Bob Clearmountain, who would co-produce Adams' second album. Now, as we continue to break down this classic hit, I want to recognize our sponsor, Factor. Now, I'm a bit of a foodie. I love to eat a variety of different foods, but I cannot cook. I love my wife dearly. She's not a chef either. We're both so busy with kids and an on-the-go lifestyle that healthy meal preparation, it's a real challenge. Now, fortunately, I discovered Factor, and it's been a game changer for my family. Factor has more than 34 chef-prepared meal options to choose from that are very easy to prepare. I love that it only took 2 minutes in the microwave to heat up a delicious calorie-smart meal with less than 550 calories per serving. Now, if you're like me and you're way too busy to cook, head to factor75.com or click on the link below or link right up here. And you know what? More good news. Use the promo code ROCK50, all caps, to get 50% off your first Factor box. By the way, I highly recommend the smoothies from Factor. They're amazing. Love them. Check it out today. So when Bryan Adams was recording Cuts Like a Knife, he wanted to create a studio atmosphere that felt like the band was playing live. Said Bryan about it, "There was a real focus in my mind as to what I wanted the album to sound like. Now, when we went into the studio, I had written songs around the idea of performing them live. The adrenaline is a lot higher when you're playing in a concert. So I really had to get the band in that feeling. Now, to polish off the sound that he wanted, Adams tapped into the talents of an all-time great. Legendary Foreigner frontman at the time, Lou Gramm. Yeah, Lou Gramm actually sang backup on 7 of the album's 10 songs. Adams, he got to know Gramm while opening for Foreigner on the previous tour. According to his book, Jukebox Hero, Lou Gramm remembered a couple of Bryan's vocalists had taken ill and he desperately needed somebody to fill in. Bryan reached out to Lou through his management, but he didn't get a response right away, so he had other musicians record the parts. However, after a week of waiting, Lou Gramm got back to him and said he'd love to re-record those parts. Adams said singing with Lou Gramm is 2 trains going at 100 miles per hour trying to beat each other, but still staying even. Man, that's so cool. He also said, "I think Lou's one of the greatest rock singers ever. If I got a chance to have him on my record, I'll do whatever it takes." Although Bryan offered to pay Lou for his services, the Foreigner legend, he refused. Looking back, Gramm said, "I'm sure he would have done the same for me. It was just a case of one rocker helping another." And that's who Lou Gramm is, man. I've gotten to know him a little bit through the Professor of Rock live event that we did and a few interviews, and he's just such a great guy. Now, Adams, for his part, gave Lou credit on the album. When it was complete, Cuts Like a Knife, that was released on January 18th, 1983. This album, this collection of songs, it established Bryan Adams as a legitimate North American music star, and it put the Adams Vallance songwriting team on the map for good. The record reached platinum in the U.S. in August of '83, and it featured 3 top 25 Hot 100 singles. Classics now. Straight from the Heart, This Time, and of course, Cuts Like a Knife.
You said it's easy, but who's to say? No way, she's gonna get away this time. Mistaken, there's times I thought I'd been misunderstood.
So Cuts Like a Knife, this song, that had something of an unusual beginning. Started during a jam session with Adams just mumbling nonsensical lyrics. Actually, for Bryan, I guess that wasn't unusual. He said a fair share of the songwriting sessions with Vallance started with him just humming and singing different melodies and fragments of song. Mumbles is what Bryan called them. Mumbles. They were just something the duo could build a song around, put kind of a scratch vocal there to see where they were going. Later, they would go back and make some sense out of them. Said Adams, I think that I'm one of the world's best mumblers. I can mumble some of the best lyrics. Putting them together, that's another story. That's where Jim is really good. He can piece a story together for me. Cuts Like a Knife, it was literally a mumble. We looked at each other, rolled the tape back, and it sounded like Cuts Like a Knife. So we started singing that.
Oh, cuts like a knife.
That's right, the original lyrics, complete gibberish. I wonder what the actual song sounded like with those mumbles. I mean, what sounds like Cuts Like a Knife? Leave a comment below if you have any ideas. Let's have a discussion about it. It's a great way to start a tough talking breakup song, I guess. But I guess once Bryan started singing Cuts Like a Knife, Jim Vallance immediately joined in singing But It Feels So Right. It's brilliant. What a clever counterintuitive line for that.
Yeah, but it feels so right.
So I guess after that, the two were off and running, and they just kept at it until it was done. Now at this time, Bryan Adams described his music, including Cuts Like a Knife, as a love fantasy. He readily admitted that he hadn't had a lot of intense love affairs. I mean, after all, at this point, he was still in his early 20s. Bryan did confess, though, that he'd had his fair share of flings. So flings and fantasies, that's what he drew on for this particular song. Of course, Cuts Like a Knife also sports an iconic fade-out chorus, populated with more than 100 na-na-nas. So actually, I went through and I tried to count every single na-na-na, and I came up with something like 135, give or take. Now, is that the most ever, you ask? Not even close. We'll get to that in a second. But what Vallance did here is really pure genius. He was intentionally invoking a well-worn tradition in pop music history that lures us in as listeners. He gave us an irresistible sing-along section that you just can't get out of your head, and you have to sing along. I mean, songs like the Beatles' Hey Jude, Steam's Na-Na, Hey Hey, Kiss 'Em Goodbye, and Journey's Lovin', Touchin', Squeezin', they've all used this technique to perfection, I might add. A little more recently, Train did it pretty well with Drops of Jupiter, Tell Me. Parenthesis song. So which song has the most na-na-nas? Well, out of these contenders, it's between Hey Jude and Na-Na, Hey Hey, Kiss 'Em Goodbye. Both of those have more than 200. If anyone wants to get an exact count, feel free. Let us know what the winner is below. That's kind of fun. So back to Cuts Like a Knife, Bryan Adams actually assumed that this song would be the album's lead single. However, he was surprised and dismayed when his label A&M chose Straight from the Heart.
Coming straight from the heart.
Straight from the Heart, a ballad. Adams actually strongly opposed the move. The first single should always be a rock song, he said. I don't think Straight from the Heart is top 40 material. Well, it turns out it was top 10 material. Cuts Like a Knife was then released as the album's second single. It dropped on May 27, 1983, right as Straight from the Heart was speaking at number 10 on the Hot 100.
Cuts like a knife.
As the summer started to progress, it became clear that Bryan Adams had 2 hit songs on his hands, and it made the album a million seller. After years and years of trying, it was about time. Adams was finally storming the U.S. charts. Cuts Like a Knife, like I said, it reached number 15 on the Billboard Hot 100, went to number 6 on the Billboard Top Tracks chart, the rock charts. In his home country, Canada, Cuts Like a Knife, it barely missed the top 10 at number 12.
Yeah, but I feel so right.
Now, Jim Vallance calls Cuts Like a Knife the first real hit for Bryan and him as co-writers. He said it took Bryan's career to the next level, and he noted that even though it charted higher in Canada, he considered the U.S. charts a better indication of the song's success. A lot of people don't know this, but back then, Canada's chart was a little bit rigged in favor of Canadian artists thanks to the CanCon, a content regulation that forced Canadian radio stations to devote 40% of their airtime to Canadian artists. Said Jim about it, when you have a hit in Canada, you always wonder, was it really a hit or were there unfair advantage at play? Cuts Like a Knife, its chart success was also bolstered by a somewhat controversial music video, at least for its time.
Darling, can't you see we did the best we could?
The music video featured actress Raquel Peña, who also appeared in Michael Jackson's Billie Jean video. It was filmed in Los Angeles at the Hollywood Athletic Club. Much of the video focuses on Raquel changing into a bathing suit.
Now you've thrown it all away.
And meanwhile, Adams peels an apple with a knife and then rocks out with a band in an empty swimming pool. At the end of this, Raquel high dives into the same empty pool. The music video was MTV's most popular in '83 and went a long way to bolster the song and really the album's success. And in terms of pop culture, Cuts Like a Knife, it's been surprisingly silent, scoring only a couple of placements in the Canadian TV show Life with Derek and 2020's Ray Donovan the Movie. Not really sure what's going on here. This is such a great song. I mean, Adams is no stranger to media placements. And you look at his IMDb profile, his songs have appeared in something like 200 movies and television episodes. Likewise, covers of Cuts Like a Knife, also a little sparse. There are a few, but not a lot on record. It's been covered by Jason Aldean, Billy Joel, and actually Bryan Adams teamed up with Bruce Springsteen to sing it. They duetted on it just recently. It's really pretty cool. I'll link to it below. All of this kind of surprises me, though, especially since Cuts Like a Knife is his second most played song in concert. Comes in just behind Summer of '69 with more than 1,400 performances. I mean, clearly Bryan Adams likes this song as much as the rest of us. So after Adams and Valance's breakthrough album in '83, the duo reunited to release their biggest album, Reckless, in 1984. It contained smash hits, hit after hit. I mean, there was top 10s, Run to You, Somebody, Summer of '69, as well as Adams' first number 1 hit, Heaven.
I'm gonna run to you, 'cause when the feeling I need somebody. And love is all that I need.
Every single one of these was co-written by Jim and Bryan. Reckless would actually certify platinum ×5 in the US and sell more than 12 million copies worldwide. However, 1987's Into the Fire, it took a step backwards. Even though the record was still successful, it went platinum in the US on the back of the number 6 single, Heat of the Night.
In the heat of the night.
It was regarded as a bit of a disappointment following up Reckless. By this point, there was constant pressure on the duo to up their game, and I guess a mere million records sold wasn't enough. As a result, tension increased within the partnership, and as the 80s marched on, Jim Vallance began partnering with other artists, bands like Aerosmith and Glass Tiger and Heart.
Come on over, see me, ragdoll. Baby, won't you do me like you done before? Don't forget me when I'm gone. What about love? Don't you want someone to care about you?
Valance's resume also included work with Alice Cooper, Lita Ford, the Go-Go's, Joan Jett, Rick Springfield, the Scorpions, and Ozzy Osbourne, just to name a few. So when Jim and Bryan sat down to write material for 1991's Waking Up the Neighbors, the pressure to create another blockbuster album, it was almost unbearable. Apparently, the two wrote together 8 to 12 hours a day, almost every day for a year. Burned out and unhappy with the result, Jim suggested that they just take a break. Bryan, for his part, though, he refused. He wanted to get this done. He was obsessed with getting back on top. So in the summer of '89, the great Mutt Lange, he stepped in and helped finish the album, turn it into the blockbuster Adams had hoped for. But in the process, Bryan had sacrificed his relationship a little bit with Vallance, who in effect told him he was done. For most of the next decade, the two hardly spoke. Adams' career skyrocketed as he continued to collaborate with Mutt Lange. The two co-penned hits like Everything I Do, I Do It For You, #1 for 7 weeks. All for Love, the duet with Sting and Rod Stewart, and Have You Ever Really Loved a Woman? All three of them went to #1, and they were movie soundtrack hits. Now, those are all stories for another day, but in the meantime, Vallance, he would watch from the sidelines. But you know what? There is a happy ending. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to hear that in a future episode about Bryan Adams. So Cuts Like a Knife, it's one of those songs that's just so laid back. It's just got swagger. It's just so cool. I've always loved the way it feels to sing along to the song. It works so perfectly in concert. Now, I just saw Bryan Adams in concert a few weeks back, and I have to say, it was one of the best live shows I've been to in a long time. He sounded like he was 25, and I'm not kidding. His voice hasn't lost a step, and he put on a hell of a show. He played like 26 songs, and he still couldn't play all of his hits. He left out a couple. The show I was at is the one that's actually going viral for the fan jumping on stage and singing the first few lines of Summer of '69. You've probably seen it. I was right behind the guy. I was sitting in the third row. I watched the whole thing happen in real time. I actually thought he was a plant. It kind of looked that way. Anyway, when Adams did Cuts Like a Knife, I looked around as about 15,000 fans sang every word. It was like the 10th song he played where this was the case. And I realized that Bryan Adams, he's transcended the decade his songs came from. Kind of happened without anybody really knowing about it. He's one of those artists we've all just kind of taken for granted because he's so consistent. He's always been there. His songs have always been great. His songs have become the soundtrack to the checkpoints of our personal history. I mean, the man snuck in and took over radio, and he's become a rock and roll institution. Thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about Bryan Adams and Cuts Like a Knife. Isn't it the coolest song? What are your memories of this song? It's such a great sing-along ditty. Let's talk about it below. What other Bryan Adams songs would you like to see? Got to go check him out live. If you like our content, we would love to have you subscribe below. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friend.